Okay, welcome. It's November and we're getting ready to unpack some leadership and some history. I'm kind of excited about this discussion. I know we've had fun kind of talking offline about it, but welcome everybody. If you're joining us today, drop where you're from. I'll just roll right into I'm Robin Hunt. Happy to be here. I'm going to talk about, as we said, a trip down memory lane right before we went live. Bill, tell everybody about you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Shander, and I'm excited to be here as always. And what I focus on, specialize in, is data storytelling and visualization. And this walk down memory lane will be interesting. I have many things in my head about the past to share. Hopefully,
Oh, that's
I'll
cool.
remember them all. We'll see.
Okay. All right, Jenny, how about you?
We'll see how that rocks. Hi, I'm Ginny Von Quarter. Always good to be here with my friends Robin and Bill. I'm joining you today from sunny Mexico, and I already did the warning that if my Wi-Fi gives out, I will come back. So, on to you, Robin.
Okay. Well, I also told Bill if I happen to go off video and muted to just let everybody know that I'm coughing and that I'll be back. And I
And
might
so,
be a
if
little bit more
if we
red in the
lose
face.
Robin and Ginny, I will tap dance.
Okay, yes. And to me, you're blurry right now. So I don't know. Is Bill blurry for everybody?
Bill's blurry.
I'm
He's in
often
New
blurred.
Mexico, not Old Mexico, so he doesn't have the regular excuse. But
Well,
I also worry about you getting a virus sitting between us like this.
yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
Computer virus.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
I love it. Hey, so let's acknowledge today, happy Veterans Day. I have friends, family, colleagues, who have all been in the military. My family is full of Navy and Marines. And so, yeah, I'd just like to say happy late birthday to the Marine Corps yesterday, and then happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there, my father included. Yeah, and Jenny, we froze. I think we
And
froze right
mine.
on. There you are. There you are.
I am.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. You froze a little bit there, but you froze
Okay.
on a precious face. It was such a good face to freeze on if you had to freeze on one. Okay. So you guys are coming to Birmingham in just a few days.
Yep.
What are we down? We're down to 9 days. And I will see you before you get in the day before the leadership summit. Um Super happy about the leadership summit and hope that this is a event that we can do annually for the leaders in our community. And I think we have several coming in. I think the furthest I know, one person I think is coming in from Colorado. They're flying in to be a part and witness
Nice.
the leadership summit. So I'm pretty excited about that. You guys were with us November 23, where we did our first Data Fundamentals Unpacked live. You guys remember
Yep.
that?
I
Yeah.
do.
If you missed it, you didn't get to see it at all because the video was lost, which was devastating. Well, it was. We had the video, we didn't have the audio. I mean, as much as
We
I'd
could
love to
have done
look
a
at it, it's like
voiceover.
it'd be better to have the audio for sure.
Yeah.
So,
AI do lip reading translation.
Yeah.
yeah, what a thought! What a thought! No, it was such a fun time, and there were several people there at the event in 23 who said, uh, "Robin, this was wonderful. Um, I think if more people understood that you were doing this, you could have packed this room out." And I was like, "Well, hey, when we do it again, please help." And so a lot of those gentlemen are now supporters of this event and have sponsored various aspects of it. And so not only did they show up for us 2 years ago, but they're showing up for us a big way to bring everybody together to talk about the leadership summit and things that leaders need to know. Traditionally, I teach Excel and data and all those fun things, and I love that. But I am a leader too, and I do need leadership uh, training and leadership development. And all of us really do. And with the world changing so quickly, and I know you guys have seen the stats coming out about 70% of our skills change. It's a lot faster than what they predicted. And so I just think it's a good time for us to kick the end the year with some good solid leadership advice so that these leaders that chose to be in the room with us on November 20th are prepared with good information to kick off their first quarter. It's sort of what my hopes are when we put it together. But you two have, like, I mean, you're coming, Bill, you're doing stakeholder whispering, decoding AI with Serena Wong. I'm just going to be so excited to hear that conversation. Like, I know I've given y'all some things that I'm hoping to hear and all of that, but just waiting in bated breath to hear you decode with her. I think is going to be interesting for you to listen to her and then serve as the translator for all the leaders in the room. Like, it's like witnessing stakeholder whispering in real time. I love that. That's what my hope is anyway.
I think it'll
Are
be
you
great. I think
excited?
very, very interesting. I think that when I think of leadership, also, I think of the Peter Principle. Have you ever heard of the Peter Principle?
Yep. Tom Peters, right?
Was it? Maybe it may have been. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
idea is that, you get if you're really good at what you do, you get promoted and you get promoted and you get promoted, and eventually you rise to a role of your own incompetence.
Of your own
Oh yeah.
incompetence. Yep.
In other words, you're really good at database work. You're really good at, all the technical stuff. And then suddenly you're a manager, you're a leader, and you may or may not be good at that. And so it's not to say that all leaders are incompetent. It just means that, we're really good at this. And then suddenly we get to this other role. Now, some people are great at that and they transition wonderfully. A lot of us, as you said, Robin, we need training. We need a new way of seeing the world. We need to understand how to get other people to be good at what we used to just be good at ourselves. It's a whole different world. And to your point about the conversation with Serena, yeah, I mean, AI, right? Like AI is this incredibly new thing. We're all kind of bumbling around, half blind, trying to figure it out at the same time as everybody else. And, leaders have to be fast and on it. And I think Serena will have a lot of really smart things to say about it. And I'll do my best, as you said, to translate, her sort of very focused technical knowledge and her people analytics focus. And,
Mm-hmm.
we'll help sort of make it accessible and actionable, hopefully,
I
for all the
love
leaders in
the
the room.
actionable. Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely the living example of the Peter principle. Like, I'm a data analyst, database designer,
Yeah.
report creator. I write pipelines and automation. Um, Running a company was never something I grew up believing I was doing. Like, and then I was thrust into leadership and I still didn't recognize it. Daniel and I were two-man shop. Well, two-man, you know what I mean by that.
2-person.
Two-person shop forever. And then we started growing in 2020. And it's like you have to be a leader.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, all right, leaders delegate. Oh, that's hard when you've
It's
been a
really hard.
solo, like when you've been developing applications in a box and working out all the rules in a box by itself, and then boom, everybody gets it. That's a whole lot different than communicating, delegate. So yeah, I think I definitely have grown as a person in leaps and bounds towards leadership. But I mean, I'm constantly assessing myself and giving myself a hard time. So I like the idea of having a summit where we can be real in a room and train leaders. I need it too. Yeah, Jenny, what you got?
Are you also, though, like I imagine, this is my mental template of Robin Hunt, is that when Robin was running a business all of a sudden, you and Daniel,
Mhm,
I'm guessing that you kind of knew you might want to learn some new things. And you were
mm,
reading different books, maybe, or
mhm,
taking some different courses, or investing in your own upskilling.
mhm, yeah,
I think part of what sits behind the Peter Principle is the idea that if other people have hired you for a job that you've never had, that they must think you know how to do it. And I've noticed in a fair number of organizations, particularly in the not-for-profit realm, where the person who was the head developer in an IT department now becomes the CIO with no management skills whatsoever.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to invest, because if they were, they would have hired somebody from outside, probably, who had these skills or had these experiences. But it's like, oh, they'll figure it out. And to be honest, a lot of times we don't have the time to figure it out. We're hired for an actual job that's already behind the last person left, and we jump in
Mm-hmm.
as best we can. But I think the idea that you know everything you need to know, and it's hard to put aside, it's a discipline to put aside the time to learn the skills for the new job that you've just
Nailed it.
taken. And
Nailed
it's a discipline for leaders to invest in people in their organizations in this same way. To
Yes.
say, how much money are we spending on training these former business analysts, right? To be, Power Apps leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Power Apps
Yeah.
wranglers. Are we
Mm-hmm.
investing in them, or are we just hoping that they'll learn this stuff on their own? So I think that there's a whole piece of that too. But the Robin Hunt in my head went out and learned new things because, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and I would say that's traditionally been true of me as a person pretty much my whole life. Like, I don't imagine me if I ever stop wanting to learn new things, I think I'm done. Like,
yeah.
I think that would be a signal to me something is off or it's time to be done and just vacation, maybe.
It's like you're going,
Um,
oh no, new stuff.
yeah. Well, I watch my reaction too, like because artificial intelligence, right? Like we're told this is a whole new wave of things, and it's artificial intelligence isn't new, but this is a new wave of things. And I mean, I'm watching other leaders, they're like, mm, mm, mm,
Mhm.
I don't really want to, and I'm like, I want to learn all this thing. I'm so excited, and they're not. And I'm
Yep.
like, you got a whole group of people you gotta lead. Like, you can have like, I hear you, it's okay to have that thought right now, but you gotta suck it up and get over it. Like, this is not going anywhere. We have to prepare the workforce while other people work on their parts of it. I do understand there's ethical concerns and there's regulations and there's all these things. But yeah, my response to it has been like, I'm excited to learn new things where I have a lot of peers that are like, I'm thinking, wow, like this may be, I'll ride this wave out till I retire. Or, this will be the one to retire on. And some are like, oh man, I wish I'd already retired before this came about. They're dreading the next decade. I'm like, let's go. So you
Yeah.
nailed me. You nailed me. You know me.
I mean, yeah, I remember when Microsoft used to invest lots of time in bringing people into labs, like regular users of Microsoft Office. And they would they'd have they'd be recording the screen, and then they'd have a camera over their shoulder. You never saw the person's face, but you saw the back of their head. Sometimes I don't even think you saw their hands, but you saw the back of the head, the screen, and you heard them talking if they were talking. And they would ask people to solve a problem. Like they'd say, pop open this Excel spreadsheet and do these things. Okay. And then they started doing that around, I'm thinking Office 95. We're going to get to this later, right? But
Mm-hmm,
they started
mm-hmm.
doing this kind of testing where they had tens of thousands of hours of watching people interact with software. And one of the things that they learned was that when people were given the new version of Office, the new version of Word, the new version of everything, the first thing they did was dumb it down so it looked like the version they just had. They turn
Yep.
features off. Absolutely. And then next to that, they have the IT departments who are looking at this going, we can't support that new stuff because maybe we don't have a training budget, or we don't have time to learn this stuff. So we're going to turn some of those features off. And so you're paying for Office 2000 and running Office 95 maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because between the users and some of the folks who are putting throttles on software. So that urge to say, do I have to learn this now? Or I don't have time to learn this now. Well, when will you ever have time if you don't have time today?
You
You
got to
know?
learn it in real time.
Yep.
Like, you got to learn it in real time. And yeah, Bill, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, and part of it too, this whole idea of learning new things when you're a leader, what you have to learn is different from what you have to learn when you're the hands on the keyboard doing stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
when, I was learning programming, I had to learn syntax and logic and debugging and
Mhm.
all the deep, nitty-gritty details. But a leader just has to sort of know a little bit about what kind of things can you and can't you do in program? What are the kinds of things that are problematic and they're going to ruin a schedule and ruin a budget and are risky and blah, 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 blah. Like you have to have like that high level view. And so, some people want to get into the nitty gritty and learn every little detail. They probably maybe shouldn't be leaders, or they have to sort of learn that new way of looking with a broader lens at all the things that they need to learn. So, we're becoming leaders. You said it, Robin. You got to learn to delegate. You got to learn to learn differently. You got to learn to mentor, which,
Mm,
if you're like, especially for
Mhm.
technical people, you're just being, in your little silo working on your thing, you may not be used to mentoring. There's all kinds of these, skills and ways of looking at the world that are so different that we'll be
budgets,
talking about next week in
Budget.
Birmingham.
Yep.
budgets. You have to learn budgeting. And
Mhm.
if you
Budgeting.
haven't been a project manager, when you're a leader, you're a project manager,
That's
Yeah.
right.
you know?
Well,
Mm.
Yeah.
I know that's some of the stuff that we'll be talking about at the leadership summit. Like the opening panel is a security and data panel. And I'm thrilled over this mix of people because I just know that the conversations will be great. Um, and there is an evolving relationship between data and security because what are we securing? We're securing data. And security analyst, forensic analyst, like all of us are using data. Like we all need business intelligence. I'm just pretty excited to hear that conversation. I think we'll all gain a lot from listening to them talk about it. Then we're going to go jump into Bill and Serena talking about AI and decoding and hearing all the things you should be hearing in the noise. And then I think probably one of the most fun things of the day will be watching Jim Bob McAllister wrangle Ozzy Soleil, Helen Wall, and Joe Marini in the great debate about uh, Excel, R, and Python. I cannot. This is going to be
Huh.
just.
Huh.
I could not have picked 3 better people to represent Excel, R, and Python either. I'm just telling you when I
Yeah.
think about it.
Will they have white gloves so they can like slap each other,
Oh, I hope not. No, it's a
chomp
leadership
each
event.
other?
Oh,
But
the
maybe
gauntlet.
HR
The
would
ones
call
with
in
the
on our
long
leadership
cuffs.
event. I will tell you this though, um, talking about, you have to invest in your people and you need to educate them. So for the great debate, I threw out an AI challenge to the team. And I said I need a game show. I can't find what I'm looking for. I want to have a visual component to some of these questions that we'll be asking. And laid down the challenge and asked my team to bring me a game that they create, and they could use artificial intelligence completely.
Huh.
And then they had a week to come and do their presentations. And yeah, I can't wait for you guys to see what one of our teammates created using artificial intelligence because I could not find what I needed to represent the vision, and they were able to build it.
Nice.
Huh.
So I'm super excited about
I'm,
that.
that's cool. So these are folks on your team at Think
Yeah.
Data that you asked to do
It's one
this.
of my
Like,
apprentices.
that's cool. That's
Yeah.
very,
That'll
very
be fun.
cool.
Yeah.
I
So
built Jeopardy in Excel a few years ago. Like I have a version of Jeopardy that runs in Excel and PowerPoint
okay,
Nice.
well,
because I needed it for the same thing, a game show. I don't even think I would bother to dust it off anymore. I'm eager to see what your folks have done.
I'm pretty thrilled. And what's most thrilling is working through a challenge like that allowed them to fill in their gaps
Yeah.
Yeah.
and really identify like, oh wait, okay, now I gotta go. It had something motivating to chase. And I just think that's amazing when you're trying to learn something to have something that you can get your hands
Yeah.
around.
Learn
Yep.
by do. Absolutely.
Learning by doing. Real thrilled of that. But then to conclude the leadership summit is Data Fundamentals Unpacked Live again.
That
So
would be us.
that's the 3 of us, and we're bringing Austin Sensman to join us. And I love Austin. I was thinking about him this morning and thinking about Data Fundamentals Unpacked. And when you build an event like this and you try to curate all these things, like you try to mix the right people in, right? And Austin started with another Birmingham AI here, and they have hundreds of people that are coming to they're, enthusiasts and they're excited. But he's coming for that reason and AI. But I was thinking about all the time I've known him, and he was really one of the first people I knew to adopt Power BI.
Mm.
So he's always been kind of like he's, got his hand a little bit on the pulse of what's coming, and he's a data guy, and he's great with Power BI, and he understands what we do. So I think he's going to just be a great mix with us, but he is diving in deep on AI. I would say he's going to bring an interesting flavor to Data Fundamentals Unpacked with his data knowledge and his AI knowledge. I can't wait to hear what comes out of that conversation. So I'm thrilled. Yeah, should be a fun day. Hope people will attend. You have to have your ticket purchased by tomorrow at noon because I have to turn in head count.
Is it true that if I buy a candy bar, it might be in there, or is that not true anymore?
What do you mean?
Like I thought there was a deal where I could buy Willy Wonka bars, and there might be a golden ticket for the leadership summit.
Oh yeah, yes, we do have some tickets. We do have some golden tickets that get you things, but we're having a movie break with full candy bars.
Oh,
so you don't have. So when you said that, I thought, oh no, I'm going to just give you a candy bar because you're going to be there. We're already prepared. But yes, we do have swag bags and all sorts of fun stuff. I almost just said everything, but I can't do that.
No.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of history. I want to go down a trip down memory lane, as Jenny said. I'm trying to write a piece on this that hopefully I'll get out before the end of the year. And you guys have heard me kind of say, like, I keep coming back to how's this really any different? How is artificial intelligence really any different than anything else? And yeah, so I started writing out every single migration that I had personally been a part of with corporate enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And I started my career Windows 95 and Excel 97 was the first version of Excel that I ever taught. But I don't remember really doing a lot of migration training until we went to Windows 7 in Office 2007. That's when I really remember because the screens were so dramatically different. But now back in those days, I'm turning 50 on the summit, so I was 25. Really, I start my history from about 25 years old. So I was not doing migration trainings at 25. It came much later. Not too much later.
Yeah.
I remember Google when Google came out. Do you guys remember when Google came out?
Oh yeah.
I bought the IPO.
Good for you.
I remember when Google came out. That was good for me.
Yeah, I'm like we're having a side conversation later. Thanks for sharing that. That's good.
Yeah.
I remember we compared Google to Jeeves. That's what we were doing.
Ask Jeeves, AJ.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know why I remember this. We asked Jeeves something about flying red squirrels and compared the search results from Google to Jeeves to see which one had better results.
Which one did? Do you remember?
I mean, I remember we just started doing Google. Like I think we just abandoned Jeeves and went straight to Google.
Yeah.
As did everybody.
I think that pretty much I think it was, yeah. That's also significant for us to kind of point out, right? There was a time when we could not stream on internet. We couldn't stream video on internet. Do y'all remember that?
Yep.
We didn't have transparency. Yeah, so let's go through the history.
Barely look at a GIF on the internet back in the day. I mean, in fact, I started using the internet before the web had launched technically, but it was right at that time. So I was on the internet. I was using Gopher, and Telnet, and this is like command line stuff.
Oh
Yep.
my
And then
gosh.
one
Yeah.
day I heard about this guy who invented this thing called Mosaic, browser
Yes.
precursor to Netscape. And
Yep.
I didn't
Oh,
download it for like
Netscape.
2 years. I was like, that sounds crazy. What do you mean graphics? And then you load up a web page and there'd be like one little GIF or JPEG and it would take like 22 seconds to download.
Listen, it was groundbreaking when Clippy and Albert Einstein, the help menu in Office, looked like them. They were no longer in square boxes.
Yeah,
The,
The
right.
the
help menus,
original agents, like agent means something so different now, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And then you could build your own. And I actually did that. I actually built my own. Well, I built an agent for one of my clients that wanted to have their own. I mean, what we think of as an avatar now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For their help system. So you could make
How
your
about
own
that?
stuff. Yeah. It was.
Well, I spent like I would teach people because you got to remember back in the Windows 95 days, this was 19. Well, this is 2000 for me, but like we were still teaching people how to operate the machine with a mouse and a keyboard.
Yep.
So I would open my class up with needing them to get comfortable with the machines they were on
Mm-hmm.
because they were all leaving their office. They were coming to work on my computer lab machines. And so I would actually say, okay, everybody, let's hit function key F1. And it would bring up Clippy. And then I would teach them how to right click so they could change it to Albert Einstein, who would then come out and drink coffee with everybody. And by
Yep.
the time I was done doing my bit, they were all comfortable with the machine. And then I could actually teach them things.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about how do you get a person. I don't think we ever think about the fact that like you're driving your mouse over here, your keyboard in front of you for things that are happening in front of you. It's a disc like it's like you got to put it together. And for a
Very
lot of people,
abstract.
that's they have to be able to do they got to build the muscle memory to be able to do that. And when I think about artificial intelligence, it's all this,
Hmm.
right? In some cases, Gen AI is this,
Yeah.
and who knows what's coming. Natural language means we can speak right to it if we can speak it. But I mean, I remember when touchscreens came out. You guys remember when touchscreens came out?
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, my first students would do their touchscreens like,
Boom. Boom. Yep.
and now I touch screens that are not even touch screens. And I go, oh,
Yeah.
Think about the phone, right? Like, my mother has her iPhone,
mhm.
and it's like you think about how many different gestures there are. You swipe from the bottom to switch apps or whatever. You swipe from the top to bring down that whatever that interface is called with the
Control
airplane
panel.
mode, etc. But if you swipe from the top, sort of, but not quite this way, that gives you the search. And so all the nuance of how you interact with it and what actions occur, literally two different ways of swiping down, as an example, you got to learn that stuff. And it's really uncomfortable. The other day, my mother was on her phone and she was actually like doing stuff. I was like, oh my God, she's figured out. She's 88,
Yeah, yeah.
But a year ago, she hated her phone. She would never touch. She still hates it, but she would never even touch it back in the day. But like she would be literally, I don't know how to do what I do, and she, the home button went away, and et cetera, et cetera. So
Mhm.
yeah, getting comfortable with the device and the abstraction of even a touch screen and all the different ways of interacting it is really hard to get past. And of course, if you're born into it, if you're a digital native, it's one thing. But those of us who had to sort of do these migrations from one thing to the next, it's a
Yeah.
whole different ballgame.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely a different ball game. Migration training is a little bit different though, because you have to think about those things. Because
Yeah.
why do people pay for migration training? It's because they've made huge investments in software and they need adoption. And you don't teach your people how to use it, and you don't factor in those things, you're not going to have the same level of adoption as companies who do.
Yeah.
And then you're going to end up complaining about how you never actually got your ROI out of the software.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then you're going to underinvest in the software. And every time there's, we're talking about like the history, but I'd overlay the history of technology with the history of what's happened with the economy. in whatever country you're looking at, because every single time. So 2007, thankfully, right, we get this nice rollout that was accompanied, because we have Windows that's different and new. We have a couple programming languages that had major changes that year. We have a new version of Office that's significantly different. And I'm grateful that it was 2007, because by 2008, more than 70% of companies had cut their budgets for training and travel.
Yeah.
Okay. So you imagine that software comes out just 9 months later, and it's almost dead in the water.
Yep.
And so there's this thing about when you can roll things out and what kind of investment that folks will try to make in it. But typically, if you're in a down cycle economically, long before you're going to lay a lot of people off, normally I'm saying, you're going to not be training the ones you have, right? And
That's
you're
right.
not going to invest in the kind of experiences that let people learn on their own.
Yeah.
So that creates just this huge bump to me that that we maybe almost never make up for. It's like the folks who were slow adopters there ended up having issues then in every rollout after that.
Yeah.
Because when we're doing migration training, we're usually training to the new, from whatever you had to whatever. Well,
yeah. What are the differences
to whatever you have? We don't often go in and say, "Oh, you're moving from, you're moving from Office 97, and that would be Windows 97 would have been Windows
98, 95,
and then 98 the next year when Outlook. So you're moving from there to 2007 because you never did any training in between, and you still have users who are trying to use the software as if it were that old. That stuff, that migration more than one version back really doesn't exist easily for people to get their hands on that kind of training.
Well, too, like back in those days, we were still hand installing a lot of software, right? And then you had bless y'all, I don't care. Like, it's okay that you did this, but because we had hand installs, you could delay deployment as long as possible. So you had people who they would deploy across their organizations, but they wouldn't deploy in every, the accounting department didn't get deployed because they didn't want to break the macros that ran all the financials. That's the truth. That's the truth. And I don't blame them. But then as we went, so you got 2003, Office 2003, and then there was XP. I can't remember if XP was before 2003 or not. And then we had 2007. So you had a lot of people who didn't adopt 2007. So they had 3 more years with their people on old technology that then they went to 2010, Office 2010.
And their heads exploded.
And they're like, what? But it was a cycle of it. But now that we're in cloud-based technologies, it's like you're still depending on what your IT group decides that they're the decisions are being made on what's being deployed. But the day and age of running an archaic set of software really, in enterprise is kind of hard these days. You just really can't.
Yeah.
You got to, and security too. You got to stay up to speed and stay modernized. But we still have cycles of adoption. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how companies decide to roll out Microsoft Copilot. It's kind of rolled out in our face already, whether you have licensing or not, right?
Icon's right there hanging out. My favorite meme is the one where it's Clippy going, Copilot, I am your father.
Yeah, it's great.
Copilot logo and Clippy. It's like, yeah, that's where we learned those things. But yes, even in the products, that icon is sitting there, and I don't think there's going to be an easy way to turn off that icon unless your IT department wants to go to the trouble of customizing all of the ribbons for everything.
I'll tell you, I'm finding Copilot pretty annoying personally. In Outlook, I'm on a Mac, and for the last 20 years or however long it's been, I'm not sure. Command 1 for mail, Command 2 for the calendar, Command 3 for contacts. So I need to look up a content. Boom, boom, done, in. What's Command 3 now? It's freaking Copilot.
Copilot.
Oh, that's wrong.
sure or something. So like, first of all, I have to undo that muscle memory. Second
Oh
of all, I don't
man.
have thing in my version of Office for Copilot, so I can go there by mistake 8,000 times a day, but then I have to log in, and I don't have to log in for it. So the Copilot is making me very angry all the time, but just because of exactly what we're talking about, migration and sort of licensing issues all wrapped up together.
Well, yeah, and too, like when we do things repetitively, like it's built into our brain.
Deep.
And like when you change, like I'm used to doing my job, I do my job, I do my job, I do my job, and all of a sudden jobs up here or something else starts flying open, it
Yeah.
immediately causes user frustration. Well, guess what a user does when they're frustrated at work?
Yeah.
Forget this.
Yeah.
Or are
Imagine
they
if they changed copy and paste from Control C and Control V. Like if they change those letters, you'd want to murder somebody, Like you can't do that. But they do.
Yep. Yes.
but imagine
Well,
in the future we just say copy.
Yeah.
there's the point, right? The point is, I've been waiting for this to happen. I actually had somebody ask me what's a shortcut key.
Wow.
I've been waiting,
Yeah.
right?
Because they're doing everything by voice or
Or
Who
by
knows? Just talking.
or using a
Move it.
mouse. They're not.
Yeah,
They're only using the keyboard for text entry, if that, right?
Okay.
It's in terms of how you run the interface, and
Yeah.
and if you sort of look at like the ribbon of, whatever apps you're running. For a while, it was true that almost every command had sitting next to it what the shortcut keystrokes for it were. Less
Yeah.
and less true all the time.
Mhm.
For
But there are
some of them, there
tools.
are none, right?
Yeah, but there are certain tools you can't use without shortcuts. I'm sorry. Like, you're in Excel, you have a 70,000 row spreadsheet. I need to jump to the bottom. What are you going to do? Scroll? Like, you can't freaking scroll. You
No,
got to do control
control
It's
down.
L.
yeah, control end.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know.
In fact, when I teach Excel in a workshop, one of the things we do fairly early in the workshop is I say, okay, we're going to have a race. Who uses shortcuts and who doesn't? And I get two people to volunteer. And I say, okay, now start at the first cell, go to the furthest to the right cell, the bottom right, left, and like do a little lap of your spreadsheet. And of course, the person using shortcuts is boop, 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 they're done. And the other
Yeah.
person's
Yep.
like still scrolling for like 45 seconds.
Yes.
So it's absolutely essential in today's world, today's technology to do that. But yeah, eventually, go to cell, L 462 and it'll just jump.
Yeah. Well, I do. I teach you work your preference. So if you have a way that you do it, that you feel confident, you're driving down that road and you know where you're getting, stick with it. Because you either like shortcuts or you don't. Now, I'm not saying there's not a time and place for every shortcut, right? When you're doing something repetitive. But when you're trying to teach people this huge machine they're already freaked out by, and then they have to do shortcuts and memorize them, and they don't even know where they're driving. So it's like when you teach shortcuts can make a big difference for some. And then also just saying
Definitely.
you don't have to do shortcut. Like this good for you to see this, but if it doesn't stick with you immediately, it's probably not your shortcut. Because I know the ones I've learned that are mine, I'm like, oh, never forgetting it.
But the thing to me, I disagree a little bit with one thing you just said, because what I find is that people do find their groove and they stay in that groove. And to me, that is probably most problematic in Excel.
Yes.
More than in any other piece of software, because most people learn the new thing in Excel because they're working on something that was due yesterday. Okay. And if they find any way to do something that lets them survive and get it done, that becomes their new way going forward.
Forever.
Forever. And so one of my joys in teaching Excel, it's such a great product, right, is so for a lot of years when I was doing training at conferences, I started with a $20 bill, worked my way up to a 50, but at the start I would just I'd have a couple, a few hundred people in the room, and I'd take out, out of my wallet, and I'd say, if at the end of 45 minutes you haven't learned anything, this is your money. I never gave it away.
Yeah.
Because It'd be like, I just show something, it would be like, whoa, how did you do that? And it's because it's not that they didn't have a way, but they had a way that was 4 steps, right? And I had a way that was 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a piece of wanting to, and I'm going to tell another story about this. I went to a Microsoft conference, and the session that I went to the whole conference for the last day got canceled. And I'm like, ugh. So I don't really want to go to anything else, but there's this Excel session happening. And I'm thinking, I can go sit on the floor in the back and feel sorry for myself in this session. And maybe I'll learn one thing. And this ended up being, I think the folks who built either Fabricam or Contoso were doing this presentation, one of the big sample databases. And what they did with Excel in the first 5 minutes just blew my hair back. I went, I've never thought of Excel that way, because what they did was they said, if you're sending something to a worksheet to somebody in Excel and they're not an Excel user, you get to be their help desk, right? So instead of doing that, turn off the formula bar, turn off the rows and columns. They stripped Excel down till it looked like a web page. I know, I never thought of it. And it's like, you don't want them to do anything. You want them to look at it. So don't make it easy for them to mess it up.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, you can actually do that. You can make Excel look just like a web page if you want to. Now,
yes.
am I going to do this every day? No, but even if something like that, I can learn something, right? When I thought there wasn't a lot left for me to learn.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Right. And I think that that's true of all of us, that there's this thing that we think we really have down and we're really content with our skills. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, at least that's another way to think about Excel that I never thought of it ever.
Yeah. You know? I want to just, I want to say, I know you started this conversation with, you disagree with me, but I would say I agree 100 wholeheartedly with you.
Okay.
And my example of this is when I teach the autofill handle and the smart tag that they have been ignoring since Office XP.
Right.
Okay. Decades. They could have had it removed Saturdays and Sundays. So I do my whole bit is like, okay, you see that little tag? Your brain doesn't see it. See it, look at it, click it. Somebody on earth is getting paid to delete Saturdays and Sundays.
That's right. 28% of the rows. And they're writing a macro to do it.
Like, hey, how many of you learned how to count and have it do this? Like, you did 1, you did 2. Okay, you could have stopped that 15 years ago.
Exactly. Or the folks who've never seen that anytime they've selected more than one cell in Excel, there's a sum running at the bottom in the
I teach that every class. You learn in that every class. Every class. Yes, ma'am. Every class
going on. I think we're making a real pitch for the importance of training when you migrate or get new software, right?
Well, let's recap that. First of all, your hands, input, your mouth input, your eyes, all of it's having to, like, all of that stuff has changed over the years. Like we had mouse and keyboard and that was it. Now we can touch a screen. Now we can do this. We can do this. Okay, so the idea that stuff's not going to change, it's always been changing. So just be thinking about it. Bill knows more about the brain than any of us, but we all know, like, you see something and you decide it's not for you, you never see it again. And
now we lost Robin.
I think Robin just locked up a little bit, but Bill, who knows more than everybody about the brain. Go for it.
Now I have to disagree with Robin. I don't know about that, but it's true. I mean, like, I have, like, some people are better than others about intentional or unintentional tunnel vision. I'm really good at it. Like, I am both types. My unintentional tunnel vision, and sometimes I'm really focused and I literally won't hear or see anything around me because I'm so focused on what I'm doing. But then there are times where I really intentionally compartmentalize and be like, yes, I'm going to focus on this. And yes, I will ignore all that other crap happening all around it. And yes, like, you'll get tunnel vision for the way you do things, the parts of the interface you work with, and the parts that you just constantly ignore. I mean, it's just human nature. And I don't know if that's, what part of the brain is doing that, but I think it's a very useful part of the brain because part of learning, part of life, part of experience is not being drowned out by, all of the noise, signal versus noise, and that's what we have to do.
And distracted. I mean, part
Yeah,
of it is, you're sorting things by it's somehow related to pattern recognition, right?
yeah,
that as long as everything stays in its pattern, you're okay because you're trained to see the thing that's outside of pattern, right? The
yeah,
thing that isn't working the way that, but you're right. We do have total whole realms that we just move off to the side and say, our brain. So you don't have to know about that. You really don't
yeah.
have to know about that. And we convince ourselves that our minds are right about it. You
It's
know,
true.
I
And to the point about shortcuts, sometimes we like you said, I think Jenny, we get so stuck in doing it this way because that's the way we figured out and we survived that deadline and that's the way. And then yeah, sometimes we have to let's let that distraction or what we thought might be a distraction back in, which is a hard thing to do.
the other thing is that there are so many habits as we move into working with larger and larger and larger data sets. There are so many habits that people are retaining from old versions of things that they had. And I know we keep coming back to Excel, but there are so many great Excel stories about these kinds of things. Because when we look at some of the older versions of Excel, before we had Excel 5, you could only have one sheet in a workbook, right? And I think it was 128,000 rows, maybe, or maybe no, this one had been like 64.5 or something, small number
Yeah,
of rows. But we sort of beef out at some point, and we get to the point where we have multiple worksheets, so that's 5, and that we have bigger worksheets, 328,000 rows. But what happens in organizations is they have more data than that, maybe in a year or in a month. So what they start doing is they start creating a new tab in that workbook, or worse yet, a whole new workbook containing one worksheet, one for 2023, 2024, 2025. And now we want to be able to do analysis that crosses years.
yeah,
And in a lot of those organizations, they don't even bother to try multi-year comparative reporting because it's too hard.
yeah,
Okay. Whereas if they had simply left all of those transactions at some point, like 9 or 10 or 15 years ago, when you could put more than 1 million rows in a spreadsheet, there was no reason, perhaps in their context, for them to have multiple sheets anymore. So they've lost some ability to be able to do basic kinds of things. And then we say, okay, so now let's take that report and make visualizations. Let's do year over year. And it's like, right?
yeah,
Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy all these transactions out of this worksheet, and I'm going to create a new workbook, and I'm going to have a workbook that has 3 years of transaction, but that's all you should have had to begin with. So these
yeah,
limitations that existed in software that you had before, whether it's Excel, whether it's Microsoft Word, whether it's, stuff you're doing with Adobe, people learn to live within the limitations. It's like the story of the tiger pacing in its cage. And then the cage
yeah.
is removed and it still paces on the same pattern, right?
So true. And meanwhile, like that's a classic example where it brings up another sort of Excel thing that we all ignored or didn't even know existed, which is one of my favorite things about Excel, which is Power Query, right? Like there's this hidden interface in Excel, and I don't know how many years it's been there, but 5, 6, 7, you know better than I,
No,
7,
more than
probably.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
7, right?
And it's like
Mhm.
I bet half the people listening, or maybe well, our audience is pretty good, but like if this was like a general audience, 1/10 of people listening have probably ever even heard of Power Query. And so, that's this tool that can do this amazing stuff, but it's buried under a button. It's not even called Power Query on the stupid button. No one knows it's there. And yet
Right.
that starts to solve these problems. And that's where training, really comes in. It's like there's this magical thing over here. You got to learn about it because man, it's going to save you so much heartache, time, etc. And I think back to the
Yes.
day, as a designer, using Photoshop, Photoshop didn't used to have layers. And
Right.
Photoshop only had one undo. And so if you were creating a graphic in Photoshop back in like the 90s, you had to like put your background down first, make your background like exactly perfect, exactly how you wanted it. Then you're going to put the face or the type or the what. And boy, if you got that wrong, you decide later you got to fix that graphic. You had to file save as that file. Like every time you made a major change,
Every
you
single
saved a
time.
version. Yeah. So you have
That's
like
right.
8,000 files. You have to remember how to go back to the one. And then you have to, by the way, do all those later steps again and again and again. So it was a freaking nightmare. And when layers came out, I'm sure for anywhere from a day to 2 years, people probably still weren't using layers because, or they were still, I know that I personally, I would use layers, but I would still do save as. I was still saving file versions because it just felt safer to do that, you know? So it's so hard to change.
Well, and you had your habits that worked for you. You know, it's
Yeah,
one of the things that I like is that people use Power BI and they go, "Wow, you know that load at the start of Power BI, I love that. That's really great. Why couldn't they put that in Excel?" It's like,
yeah,
well, to Bill's point, it actually was there first. I mean, everything that we and ultimately the first version of Power BI was actually a set of Excel add-ins, right?
yeah,
And then we get Power BI, but that's really powerful. That's a standalone that they pull those things together. But everything but one thing was there to start with. And Power Query is just a fabulous, fabulous tool. But again, I think the question of, how many Excel users actually know how to use it. That would be a great that would be a great
Not
course.
enough.
You could live in that
yeah,
space. You could make a great living in the space of doing nothing but helping Excel users use Power Query to overcome the limitations of what they've done with their data sets in the last 25 years.
Well,
yeah,
can we just talk about like some people don't even know about Power Query, and I've watched Power Query go from okay, now it's in Excel. Now it has all the same connections as the Power Query and Power BI. Now it's in the Mac.
Mhm.
Now it's in the freaking browser.
It's in the browser.
What
Mhm.
the what?
yeah,
Yes. And some people are like, you just learned it. You just learned it was a thing yesterday. And I've watched it migrate and permeate into the world of tech and everybody really who works with data sets. So here's a good tip off. If you're writing macros today to clean data, you should learn Power Query. Just stop what you're doing
Yesterday.
and
Learn it
go
yesterday.
learn Power Query.
yeah,
And we'll all teach it to you somehow. Like, but that's your first step. If you're writing macros, I got real cute with mine. I learned how to record them into steps, and then I learned how to record myself running all my steps in order, and then I learned how to code the screen updates off, and my data was so clean so fast, and then Power Query just went, "Whoop, you don't need that anymore."
yeah,
And so there's the point right there. There's the point where you pivot or you stay believing in the investment that you made is more important than anything you could do future oriented, right?
Yes.
So it's
yeah,
like, no, I'll stay with what I've got. I spent a lot of time and attention on this system. I even documented it with comments, right? I've done 2 workshops on it. This is really great stuff. But what you did, the question is, are you going to stay there and keep building that? Or are you going to swing and pivot, so to speak, and take advantage of all the new stuff that's going to come out? Because I don't think there's going to be a huge investment made in the tools that help you write better macros.
Mm-mm. Nope.
yeah,
You
No,
know,
no, no. I would say investing in a software is a dangerous thing. Why don't you invest in your skill sets?
mm,
You can consistently invest in your skill sets. I tell people all the time, invest in yourself. Never
yep,
stop learning.
although there
So,
is also the counter to that, which is that sometimes you invest in the wrong software, the wrong platform, the whatever, because that's the one that loses the battle. Like you're going to have this panel next week, right? Python, R, and Excel. Which one? And so for a long time, there was a good debate. Should maybe Python's better, maybe R is better, whatever. And of course, now we can agree that these 3 things are they're all great and they all serve their own purposes. Fantastic. But there are certain worlds, certain dimensions where, let's just say as an example, Python might have just died, and it could have just been R and Excel left over. And
mm,
you've spent 2 years learning this thing, and now it's gone. Like, I learned Macromedia Director back in the day to do interactive CD-ROMs, and
yeah,
I made a good living out of it for quite a
yeah,
while.
yeah,
But Flash came along and ate Director's lunch, and then the web came along and ate Flash's lunch, by the way, right? And so people
yep,
who, in fact, I know a guy who he was an amazing Flash programmer, and he built more Flash sites than probably anybody on earth. And then all of a sudden, Steve Jobs ruined his life,
yeah.
and
yep.
Flash was gone, and he transitioned and did something else. But like he had to
Mhm.
really reskill pretty quickly. So there's a slight risk. You gotta pick carefully. Which actually brings me up a question for you two. Do you consider yourself an early adopter, a late adopter, or somewhere in between, in whatever way makes sense to you? So I've always been in between. I'm always a little afraid to get too ahead of things and jump on that new shiny thing because
Yeah.
it might be wasted effort. I'll glance at it, I'll play with it, but I don't want to go too deep in anything until I know it's going to stick around because I've seen too many of these flash in the pan things fall away.
Yeah.
I think I'm early. I think I'm
I'm
early.
early. I'm early.
Yeah.
You know, I go in and turn everything on,
Uh-huh.
you know, so that like everything from the admin perspective, everything's turned on so that when stuff shifts, that I'm seeing brand new stuff.
Mhm.
And that's frustrating for me sometimes. I mean, there are
Mhm.
times that I go in now there has been one exception to that very recently, which was when they started rolling out the new version of Outlook, which I might have mentioned the last time
Oh
we
yeah,
talked.
we don't like it yet.
Yeah, we don't want to go there.
Mhm.
But you know, and I'm still like running this, you know, a little old Outlook, not super old, but by and large, I like to see the new stuff that's there. And part of the reason is that I don't want to spend a lot of time prioritizing how I might do a project in anything when the software itself might be changing and that might become a new built-in feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to be able to see what's there. I don't mind being inconvenienced by having to use what's there most of the time. And that's true for software, that's true for my phone. It is not true for cars. That's the one place that I kind of am drawing the line. I won't buy a vehicle the first year that they do a big change, you know, that kind of
Okay.
thing. But second year, yeah. But normally I'm early in terms of adoption.
I'm early too. I think I've always had early access. I've always tried to have early access. Now I don't have beta channel access yet, so I can't do that new Copilot AI function. But the channel before that I'm on so that I can get the stuff and see what's coming out. The only challenge with that is, you know, you have things that are happening on your screen that you have to demonstrate to other people and tell them they don't have yet. And in
That's
some
right.
of their
Okay.
organizations, they may never have it. You know,
They may never
they may turn all those features off. But I think just the nature of the work I've done throughout my career, I've always had to be early because I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to expect me to teach this. They're going to the whole, you know, they look at you and know you can do it, and they know you can go learn that software pretty quickly. Yeah, so I would say I'm early. I maybe a little bit, but not in every technology. Just the things that drive like how I make my living.
well, there's an assumption that we can provide leaders with information about all of the things that we just got done talking about, right?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's an assumption that if a CIO or a head of an IT department wants to have a conversation about should I be adopting, you know our business. Should we be rolling with this? You know, we're not going to do every upgrade necessarily, right?
Mhm.
Or where do we invest? Is this a big enough shift? Or who should we prioritize? Like, is this something that we should roll first to the folks who are in accounting and operations? I mean, all those kinds of conversations are real conversations, and we have to be able to have something to put into that space, I think.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, when you're doing migration training to get first of all, you mass adoption, but also like day one, they roll that out. You got to be able to operate and work. That just takes special type of care and thought in upskilling people. So be
Yep.
interested to see how company
Is that your
oh,
flip
come
phone,
on.
Bill?
Yeah,
This
this is
isn't
flip phone.
this isn't just a flip phone. So I was thinking about, future, early adopter or late adopter, whatever.
Mhm,
Like I said, I'm
mhm,
mostly in the middle. But one place where I'm a very early adopter is when I have a major problem that just isn't being solved.
mm.
Hmm.
This is not just a flip phone, but this is one of the maybe the first Palm Pilot phone.
Oh my god, a Palm Pilot.
So
Did
this is
Motorola
it's
make
actually
that or did
Palm.
Palm make that?
This is from a company called Kyocera. And so
Okay.
Okay.
back in like the
Yep.
early mid 90s, people were walking around carrying a Palm Pilot, which had their contacts, they had, stored information. You
Yeah,
could
oh
take
my
notes.
god. Oh my
And
god.
we also had our like, Motorola StarTAC phone, our cool little
Yep.
tiny
Yes.
cell phone. And so if
Backbones too.
you had to, first of all, you had all this crap you were carrying around. Second of all, you had to look up the number over here on your stupid Palm Pilot and then dial it in over here. That
Yes.
drove me freaking
Oh
crazy. And so
god.
first smartphone came out, I had this, I had the Palm Trio, etc., that solved that problem. So if there's a major problem in my life, I will dig deep and I'll find whatever I can find to make it work.
Mm,
But then I'm also just very cautious at times to jump into the pool. Like, essentially, if my life works pretty darn well, and so if Outlook didn't change for 5 years, I couldn't care less. My old Outlook worked great. The new one
right.
comes along and it had that toggle. Do you want to stay in the old one? I was like, hell yeah. And I stayed in the old version for like 3 years. And now I'm finally in the new version. And yeah, I'm not really loving it. But like, it's how painful is your life, and that's what drives some of us to sort of adopt the new stuff. But to your point,
Yeah.
like sometimes you got to know what's going on, kind of like with AI. I'm familiar with what's going on. I'm sort of keeping an eye on it, but I'm not going to dive deep personally because I don't need to in my current sort of role and my
Huh?
stage in life, etc. And I'm comfortable with that with AI today. But tomorrow, things could easily shift.
I'm just dying to say this. I had a Palm Pilot. I was such a nerd. I loved it.
I did
And
too.
yeah, and I have it somewhere. And like years later got it out, and it had 32 kilobytes of storage. 32
Wow,
kilobytes.
Oh,
And
that
I was
hurts.
that's
like,
amazing.
"What the what? This doesn't
That
make any
hurts.
sense." 32 kilobytes.
That's amazing.
That's
And think
like,
about how
it was only
that
storing
thing had
text.
it had a handwriting recognition. Remember that?
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
could do your little shortcuts that it wasn't exactly a K, but this would make a K
Yep.
appear in text.
that's
Right.
funny.
The
Amazing.
little loopy widget that
Yeah.
you do. I
Well, we're past our time, so I'm gonna close this here, but I would say, like, what does all of this have to do with unpacking leadership?
mhm.
And my hope is that you've heard us talk through all of these changes, and it gives you some inspiration about thinking about the people that you lead. And as we go into this next iteration of tech, this next big wave of user adoption, like how these things change, really, they've been changing this whole time. You probably reflected on this and saw, yeah, you went through this too. So hopefully, having a little bit of history lesson of all the changes we've seen, and there's many, many more that we didn't talk about. So fun. All right, guys, I will see you in 9 days, 8 days. I'll see
We
you
will
in
be
8
there.
days. Can't wait.
Looking forward
See
to
ya.
it.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.